What if by religiously taking boron, you see more net positive changes in 1 week compared to your entire supplement stack you've been taking over the last year? No resource today promises more than what I have in my possession for you here today, gentlemen, which is the means to have you unlock or uncover the testosterone you already have. You already have in your body, because through mechanisms by which I will explain further along the video, you are not allowing yourself to experience the full bodacious fruits of your testosterone. I will reveal more quantifiably and measurably not only how much more testosterone you will be able to use from your natural reserves, but also how much more we seek to gain from our total testosterone levels, and a bonus, how some of these changes can impact your pheromone levels, as there are some links there in relation to some of the androgens that we will be increasing on this journey with boron, the unboring trace mineral. Now, I know you may feel like I'm embellishing here, and that's okay. Well, it's not okay. The reason why I'm not is because when you actually look at the data supposed around boron intake for the average man and also woman, so what might you suppose the data says? On average, how much do you imagine we are meeting the needs for basic, regular bodily functions, which is around 3 milligrams of boron per day? Would it shock you to know that the average is only about 1.5 milligrams, so half of that? Because that then is why we stand on this firm, solid ground on our earlier claims instead of a rocky, fabricated and delusional ground, especially when I share with you the ideal milligrams for supplementation for the effects that we want. And let me tell you, it's no measly 3 milligrams. You know what the really remarkable thing is for me is how little people really understand or even know about boron. I mean, frankly, I think it's a little disrespectful considering the implications for decrease in estrogen, increase in vitamin D, way up, and I mean way up in DHEA, like crazy results, which is significant for that androgenic activity, subconscious attraction, big drop in SHBG, and of course, increase in free-base testosterone levels. I mean, imagine knowing that and not stacking it. So you remember that I said at the start that the elegance of boron isn't just that it creates more free test, but that it actually unlocks the dormant free test that you already have in your body by essentially helping out all the smaller parts of the system function better holistically. In a more scientific parlance, the bioavailability of testosterone begins to increase. Now, this next part should be something that you would have heard of before, but nevertheless, it is important because the deficiencies are still very prevalent and ubiquitous today. Essentially, people are kind of hearing, but they're not really listening. And this vitamin in particular has a very strong relationship with testosterone synthesis. So much so that one study found that men who took 3,000 IOUs of the stuff for 12 months saw a 25% increase in total testosterone levels. And of course, I'm referring to vitamin D3. But what isn't so obvious is the boron influence, or the boron factor. Boron has a net positive effect on vitamin D3 through something called the process of the hydroxylation, which influences its activation as well as certain enzymes in that particular process. There's also evidence that boron inhibits catabolism of vitamin D, allowing it to kind of live longer in the bloodstream. The evidence of this is in a study showing a 19.4 increase in vitamin D levels over 4 weeks of boron supplementation. And here's the crazy thing, without additional vitamin D intake or additional exposure to the sun. So again, more credence to the point that boron is already acting on what you've already got and making better like use of it. The enhancement of vitamin D can further boost testosterone levels, but to be real with you, you should consider that a mere appetizer, a little starter. Boron's real feast is in its role in demystifying the sex hormone binding globulin aspect and DHEA, as I prefaced earlier. But there's something pretty niche that happens when you supplement it to the feminine molecule that may be in your bloodstream. Well, it's most certainly in your bloodstream. You know what I detest more than anything in this world? Taxes and benefit cheats. But maybe even more so than those two is going to be an enzyme called aromatase. Now, I know many of you are probably going to be saying that aromatase is essential to your body, that it's responsible for all the garlic bread in the world, or whatever the case may be is. But the context of androgenic activity, masculine gene expression, this is enemy number one. So aromatase is essentially an enzyme that belongs to the cytochrome P450 superfamily. It plays a critical role in the biosynthesis of estrogens by converting androgens, the male hormone, into estrogens, the feminine hormone, thus screwing with the bioavailability of free base testosterone in your blood. I mean, if testosterone is literally our paycheck and money in the back pocket, then aromatase is literally the tax man, robbing us blind to spend more money on speed cameras to find us again. But boron. Why might you suppose that this trace mineral may be of unique utility in this regard? Your powers of deduction are most astute, brother. Inhibition. Boron acts as like a savvy bouncer at a hormone party, inhibiting the enzyme aromatase, the sneaky character responsible for turning androgens and testosterone into estrogen. By curbing this aromatization activity, boron helps us keep more testosterone levels high and estrogen production low, ensuring testosterone remains the star of the show. Or I should have kept with the earlier analogy actually. Boron is like the tax rebate at the end of the tax year. After the government realizes it's been robbing you blind, boron is that relief. So this study references that boron supplementation actually decreases the level of estradiol, which is a form of estrogen, in men from 42.33 picograms per milliliter to 25.81 picograms per milliliter. Guys, that's nearly half. But here's the real meat on the bone. You'll perhaps remember me mentioning earlier that there are some interesting, maybe indirect links with some of these changes influencing androgens that are related to the pheromone family, which in theory makes sense in the polarity aspect. If androgens are the masculine element and estrogens are the feminine, there's a lot of merit to this notion that higher levels of specific androgens could influence factors like attraction, subconscious attraction to the opposite sex. So we really need to discuss DHEA in this particular aspect, which is a steroid hormone produced primarily actually in your adrenal glands. Now here's the T. DHEA is a precursor for androgenic activity. DHA is synthesized from cholesterol, which is your fat, through a series of enzymatic reactions known as biosynthesis, or the conversion pathway. Once produced, it can be converted into other steroidal hormones. DHEA can be converted into androstenedione, which can be further converted into testosterone if necessary. So, androstenedione, the backstage pass to testosterone, which also plays as a secondary role as a pheromone. Pheromones are these little nudges from nature affecting how others feel and behave around you, secreted through our sweat, our urine, our semen, and other bodily fluids. Studies have demonstrated that androstenedione is believed to subtly give you more influence in the social and sexual arenas, tweaking moods and stirring up attraction to influence the grand play of the human interaction. So you might be asking yourself, what's boron's role in all of this? Several studies underscore the significance of boron's impact on DHEA and testosterone. So for instance, a study highlighted that boron supplementation increased DHE levels by not 10%, not 25%, but 50%, suggesting that a substantial improvement in the body's ability to produce testosterone. And these findings collectively highlight the potential of boron to influence hormonal health, overall well-being through its influence of DHEA and testosterone production. Now, here's where we really wake the sleeping dragon. So here's the wild thing. Many people emphasize the overall serum testosterone levels. And, whilst the true key actually lies in free base testosterone, what's kind of bioavailable to the body to use for muscle building, for focus, for motivation, and for libido. I'm sure you're aware of this. Most testosterone, which is a whopping 98%, is bound to sex hormone binding globulin, leaving only 2% as free-base testosterone essential for achieving the desired results, with what we mean when we say we want higher levels of testosterone. So are you thinking what I'm thinking in this regard? What if we could get more access to that 98% and essentially unbind it? This is waking the slumbering dragon of dormant testosterone, in which, you guessed it, boron plays a role by decreasing its overall levels through influencing something called its steroid hormonal metabolism, leading to the freeing up of active testosterone in the blood and circulation. So for example, one study found that taking 6 milligrams of boron daily for just 1 week, as what I mentioned earlier right at the start, increased testosterone levels from an average of 11.83 picograms per milliliter to 15.18 picograms per milliliter. But to be honest, 6 milligrams is still rookie numbers, gentlemen. This is essentially more money in our back pocket to start spending on masculine attributes that we so desire: muscle bulk, circumvention of negative emotion, discipline, temperament, and much more. This was actually identified in a study of the Journal of Trace Elements in Medicine and Biology in 2011, investigating the effects of boron supplementation on serum SHBG levels in men, which also included the dosages. So hopefully I would have convinced you by now. Perhaps you're reveling right now about how foolish you feel about not knowing about boron. Just some last tasty notes to also chow down on, and then I'll reveal some of the natural sources and the ideal dosage range of supplementation with boron. So boron also has a role in supplementation with associations in decreased inflammatory markers and things like tumor necrosis factor. You would have heard me say multiple times that most disease starts with inflammation, and if boron can have a role in that, it also relieves stress, and then cortisol levels, and then there's an influx or a interchangeable relationship with stress and also testosterone, I'm sure you've heard of. Potential benefits for erectile dysfunction. There is an argument that more research is kind of needed in this regard, but the hormone effects of boron may address some cases of ED related to low testosterone or high estradiol levels. Essentially, the main bulk of most of the benefits really talk about this kind of ratio of testosterone to estradiol. So the crux of most benefits seem to be, by increasing free-base testosterone and decreasing estradiol, boron appears to improve the overall ratio of testosterone and estrogen in men. And the potential benefits of this increased ratio, muscle mass, strength, improved bone density, libido, sexual function, increased energy and virility, and potential improvements in mood and also cognitive functions as well. Now, when discussing dosages, let me put it this way. I'm going to reference a study by Nagy et al. In 2011, and they found that after 1 week of boron supplementation with 10 milligrams per day, free-base testosterone increased 28.3%, while estradiol decreased by 39%, which is pretty amazing. Now, there's various different forms of boron. The three, in my estimation, that I believe are the best is boron citrate. Now, this is the most common, and when I mention the studies here, the one that they typically reference, so boron citrate, is typically the one that you can kind of rely on. There's also calcium fructoborate, which is a plant derivative of boron. You can actually find this in kind of fruits and vegetables. Or there's sodium borate, and this is another common form of boron that you'll find in supplementation. So either of those three, probably citrate being the first one, you're usually good to go with some of these results. It's also worth knowing that boron is highly bioavailable in the body and absorbs about 85 to 90% of ingested boron, regardless of the form. So it's very safe as long as you're coming under those three forms of boron. You're usually okay. Now, I do believe that you cannot supplement your way out of a poor diet, but here's the real problem with getting boron from foods is that our soil is so depleted, it's so starved. I'm sure you've heard this point been referenced before. There's just no minerals in the soil, and this is where the let's say boron content starts to pass from the soil into the foods that we eat. I mean, look, I've got a list here. I'm just going to break down this list from high to low levels per milligram of boron in foods. So you know what the number one is? Number one is prune juice. So 1 cup contains about 1.43 milligrams of boron, making it the richest sources as far as I'm aware. You've also got avocado, so half a cup serving, which is about half an avocado, produces 1.7 milligrams of boron, 1.07 milligrams of boron. Raisins, 1.5 ounces, approximately 0.95 milligrams of boron. Peaches, a medium peach is about 0.8 milligrams of boron. Peanuts and peanut butter, 1 ounce has about 0.48 milligrams. Peanut butter, 0.46 milligrams via 2 tablespoons. Apple, medium apple is good for boron. Grape juice. So, I mean, I could keep going here. Oranges, broccoli, bananas, coffee, milk all have elements of boron, but you know, they're very, very low comparatively to how much you would have to eat in order to get up to that 10 milligrams of boron. So I just find the safest option is to get a good source of boron citrate or any of the other two and get at least 10 milligrams per day. There are some studies that say when you start to go above 20 that it can become slightly toxic, but I really believe at this point not supplementing boron is sub 3-digit IQ, and also it's pretty cheap as well. You can get boron for a reasonable price, and you know, for the results that I've been bleeding out here, it seems foolish not to supplement boron. These aren't theories today, gentlemen. These are facts. If you subscribe to this, subscribe to me, and I will bring you something else very, very soon. Take care.